हरिः ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओम। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ईश्वरोर्गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ शुक्लम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। व्यासं वसिष्ठनप्तारं शक्ते पौत्रमकल्मषं पराशरात्मजं वन्दे शुकतातं तपोनिधिं। व्यासाय विष्णुरूपाय व्यासरूपाय विष्णवे नमो वै ब्रह्मनिधये वासिष्ठाय नमो नमः। अविकाराय शुद्धाय नित्याय परमात्मने सदैकरूपरूपाय विष्णवे सर्वजिष्णवे। ॐ नमो विष्णवे प्रभविष्णवे। Okay, so we just had a longer invocation prayer today because we are about to start a new session, and just to give you a quick recap, this entire Dharmika Samvada set of sessions is supposed to last approximately 16 lectures. We may maybe overshoot by one or two because in the end I want to give an overarching summary of everything. So the first 8 talks dealt with introductory topics, and the next 8 will actually deal with the topics dealing with the core text called Tattva Bodha. So I'm just going to share my screen real quick over here. So, is everyone able to see my screen? If like just one of you can unmute yourselves, because I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, you can keep yourself unmuted if there's no like background noise also. So, okay, just for the benefit of everyone who's joining new, we covered the first 8 texts over here. I mean, not the text, but sessions called Intro to Dharma, and the first one we did was Purushartha, which talks about the 4 human pursuits that we have. The second text talks about the varieties of Shastra, the amalgamation of literature that is there in our Parampara. The third session we talked about the Varna Vyavastha, the fourfold division of society based on their Varna. So the Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. And in the fourth session, we talked about the fourfold division of human life. So you have the 4 stages of life, right? You have Brahmacharyam, Grihastham, Vanaprastham, and Sannyasa. So, these two connect together. Varna Vyavastha has a sociological scheme, whereas Ashrama Vyavastha has an individualistic scheme. And then the fifth session, we talked about the implications of Karma Yoga. And that was also very detailed talk. All of these talks were detailed. So the lectures are already uploaded on YouTube, and I'll send out a link to everybody just once more so that they can either refresh or they can just go back and refer to these 8 talks so that Tattva Bodha will be more meaningful. The sixth talk was on Upasana, and they are the various exercises that one can do, on the physical, the verbal, and the mental level to purify themselves further. Jnana Yoga talks about the pursuit of knowledge and how you go about achieving it. And Bhakti Yoga also it deals with combining some of the 3 yogas together, and it's a very detailed talk. So please go back and look at that as well. So
Hello.
now,
Excuse me.
yeah. Yes.
The Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga are the text or verses from Bhagavad Gita?
So if you in fact, let me go back to the slide just so that it's more relevant. So here when we looked at Karma Yoga, we talked about one very important aspect, and that is that there is only Dvivida Nishtha. There are only twofold paths. There is the path of the Karma and the path of Jnana, right?
I get it.
So Karma Yoga, again, you divide that into like Karma Yoga as you know it, and then you specialize that into a form called Upasana Yoga. And Jnana Yoga is separate. So there's the path of action and there's the path of knowledge. So if you look at the verse over here from the Gita as you referred, it's Lokesmin Dvivida Nishtha Pura Prokta Mayan Nagaha Jnana Yogena Samkhyanam Karma Yogena Yoginam, right?
This is the verse from Bhagavad Gita.
This is the verse from the Bhagavad Gita, correct. So, now when you actually think about Bhakti Yoga is simply a culmination of, everything put together. So, actually in the end of all these sessions, we'll do a consolidation of every single topic that we covered in Vedanta and try to connect them all together and see how they are each make the other more meaningful. So, it would take a long time to summarize Bhakti Yoga, but definitely I'll send you the link. It was like 1 hour long talk. So then you will see how they connect together. So, that is how the topics connect. So, just to give you a quick recap again, this is our Guru Shishya Parampara. They are all within the Adi Shankaracharya's Samanta tradition. And, this over here, if you can see my cursor, that's Pujya Swami Dayananda ji. He's the founder of Arsha Vidya Gurukulam, and all of these acharyas around him are sannyasis within the same panth, the same tradition. So we'll be mainly covering his talks, and over here is Swami Paramathananda ji, one of his senior disciples. And so the talks that are given here are shaped after his course outline. So not his course outline, but after his Tattva Bodha outline. He's given a very elaborate set of talks on Tattva Bodha. And so I'm simply taking some of his topics and putting them together and presenting it in discussion format. So, whatever is there, it's all due to their own effort, and I'm simply conveying their teachings, nothing more. So, again, coming back to Tattva Bodha, today we'll be looking at Sādhana Chatuṣṭaya, which is the fourfold qualifications. In the next session, we'll be the fourfold qualifications to have a prepared student for to be an adhikari, to be a qualified student for this teaching. Sharira Trayam will talk about the three bodies, Sthula, Sukshma, and Karana. So the physical body, the subtle body, and the causal body. Avasthatrayam, we'll be talking about the three, states of existence, and then we'll be talking about the Panchakosha, which are the three or the 5 layers of personality. And then we'll be looking at Atma, Shrishti, Jivatma, Paramatma, Aikyam, the laws of karma, the Tattva Bodha summary. So it's all very well laid out. By the end of it, the entire essence of Vedanta should be complete, and it should be fully understood by the aspirant. So without further ado, let's begin with Tattva Bodha. Let's enter Tattva Bodha for now. Okay, so as I previously mentioned, we've covered these 8 introductory topics to Vedanta, and now we enter Prakarana Grantha. So if does anybody remember what a Prakarana Grantha is? Because we covered this in the second topic, Shastram.
I have no idea. I have not attended that.
Oh, that's fine. Now, what about Unnati or somebody else who was here?
I think they need to unmute themselves and then tell
Right.
us.
One second. Just muting your mic temporarily. Okay, I'll just go and talk about it myself. 1 second. Okay. So, Prakarana Grantha it's a text which takes a particular topic and it expounds upon that. So, for instance, you may have a text called Drik Drishya Vivek. So that talks about the discrimination between the seer and the seen. And this is also Prakarana Grantha by Sri Adi Shankaracharya ji. So Prakarana Grantha will take the topics of the Vedas and the Smritis and so on, and it will focus upon one particular topic, and it will expand that in great detail to make it simple and understandable to the student. So Prakarana really means like entry. It's kind of an entry text. You enter the world of knowledge through this text or through that particular way it is unfolded. So Tattva Bodha also is an introductory text. It's a Prakarana Grantha, which makes the teaching very accessible, and it covers a whole breadth of topics. So that is what a Prakarana Grantha is. And I thought I'll share a little background about how it is widely taught, because until last couple of decades, Tattva Bodha was not really very well known to people. It has become more popular in people's education simply because of a funny incident actually. So once Pujya Swamiji was going through old manuscripts, and he has this thing where he'll uncover some of Adi Shankaracharya's texts which have not been taught previously. Because usually we are very well acquainted with some of the Upanishads, maybe the 10-11 Upanishads which are considered primary, and then we all know the Bhagavad Gita and the Brahma Sutras. So there are some texts which are extremely popular, and then there are other texts which Shankaracharya wrote which may not have really taken off, or people may not have diligently passed them on to their students and so on. And so Tattva Bodha was pretty much obscure for many centuries. But once what happened is there was one Swami who had approached Pujya Swami Dayananda ji, and he asked him a very odd question that can you teach me something quickly in a week, because I have to give lectures to my students and I don't know what to teach them. So usually, you would not have a Swami asking this question to another Swami, because you would expect the person to be qualified already. So he said that, please teach me the Gita within a week if you can, then I'll be really grateful to you. So we all know that Gita is a very elaborate text, and you cannot really cover the essence of it in a week. Even the basics cannot be completely covered. You need to go much deeper into that. So Pujya Swamiji declined the offer, and he said that, I'm sorry, I cannot really teach you the Gita in a week. You have to give me at least a few months just to get the basics right. So I cannot do that for you. So then that other Swami ji came back, and he said that, okay, is there anything that you think that you can teach me in a week so that I can quickly go and give my talks or whatever? So Swami Dayananda said that, not anything that I can think of right now, but let me go and look. So he did some background research. He dug through some of the manuscripts, and he found this wonderful text called Tattva Bodha, and it was written by Adi Shankaracharya. And it has only about 70 verses, as opposed to Gita, which has like 700 verses. So the content is much more compressed, and it covers, and yet it covers all the essentials that you need. So Swami Dayananda ji decided to pick up this text and start teaching it to that other acharya, and he was able to complete it within a week. So that is how, once Swami Dayananda ji started teaching the Tattva, then other acharyas started teaching it as well, and then it became the introductory course in the Arsha Vidya Gurukulam. So I'll also give a little background. Before Swamiji, came up with the Arsha Vidya Gurukulam, he was part of the Chinmaya mission. And many people might be aware of the resident courses held at Chinmaya Mission as well. I think they are 2 years resident courses. So they were designed by Pujya Swamiji himself. And even in Chinmaya Mission, Tattva Bodha is the first text that is taught, because that is the way Pujya Swamiji set it up. And in the Arsha Vidya Gurukulam also, you have resident courses which are 3 years long, and that also deals with Tattva Bodha. It starts with Tattva Bodha. So, it is recommended that anytime you encounter a student of Vedanta or an aspirant for the knowledge of Vedanta, then you begin with this text, because it is a complete text in a very short number of verses. It gives the entire essence of Shastra. So, with that background, let's look at the text itself. So first of all, Tattva means the essence, the fundamental nature, the ultimate reality, the core, the substance. Like Tattva, it's a Sanskrit word, and it talks about something that is essential, something that's very imperative, or something that has to do with reality and nature. And Bodha means knowledge. So Tattva Bodha, the purpose of the text is to impart the knowledge of reality to the seeker. So the nature of reality will be unfolded, piece by piece to the seeker who studies this text. And there is a twofold purpose over here. The first is that it gives you the entire method of inquiry that leads up to the knowledge. It gives you the qualifications that are required in order to lead up to this knowledge. And the second thing is that it introduces technical terms and terminologies. So Tattva Bodha can be considered as a lexicon for Vedanta. It's the place you go to understand all the terms. And we'll see in the forthcoming classes that there's a wide amount of vocabulary that people should become familiar with, at least over time. And one important note I also wanted to make is that there are many words in our language which are not translatable. And they should not be translated, because many times we see people translating Atma as soul, right? And if you do that, it just creates a whole variety of problems, because, for instance, if you have Atma equals soul, then what do you call the Jiva? What do you call the Sukshma Sharira? What do you call the Karana Sharira, and so on, right? There's no literal English translation for many of our Sanskrit words. And so the Acharyas have constantly stressed, this very meticulously, that please keep away from translating these words to English, because it will create a lot of problems for you in terms of understanding. And also, secondly, if you pass on these words to the next generation, then they will not really understand the originals. So anytime you create this sort of a dilution or adulteration by creating or by translating wrongly, it leads to a variety of problems. So that is something that needs to be avoided. So we will see that Tattva Bodha presents a lot of technical terms, and I encourage everybody to please go ahead and use them for what they are, as opposed to trying to translate them in your mind. So if you see Atma, let it remain Atma. If you see Moksha, let it remain Moksha. Don't translate Moksha to like salvation or whatever, because if you look at salvation, it means being saved, right? Being saved, and here in context with Christianity, it means being saved by Jesus. And we are Vaidikas here, so there is no relation between these terms. So that is something that I wanted to say publicly as well, because I still see a lot of my Vaidika Vedanta friends who continue using these Christianized terms. One another example also is that when a person passes away, instead of saying something like may the jiva gain shubh gati, or may he have shubh gamanam, may he have a better journey going ahead, we use terms like rest in peace, RIP. RIP is something that you put upon your tombstone when somebody passes away in Christianity. You bury them, right, in the Abrahamic faiths, and then you put that RIP thing, and you create a tombstone. So these things don't really work for us. So we have to become more familiar with our own expressions, our own cultural norms, and start adhering more to them. So that is one important thing that we'll get out of this text. So let me start with the invocation prayer. So I request everyone to unmute themselves for now, because it will be nice to chant this prayer together. This is the first verse of the Tattva Bodha, and it is also an invocation prayer, so it serves two purposes. So please, if everyone can repeat after me. Vasudevendram Yogendram.
Vasudevendram, the text is going off. I'm not able to see it.
Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay. Vasudevendra Yogendram Nattva Jnanapradam Guru
Jnanapradam Gurum
Mumukshunam Hitarthaya
Mumukshunam Hitarthaya
Tattva Bodho Bhidiyate.
Tattva Bodha.
So this is a very wonderful, beautiful prayer, because it serves two purposes. First of all, it is the introductory verse of the Tattva Bodha. The entire Tattva Bodha text is in prose form. It is not in verse form. It cannot be like sung or chanted or whatever. It can be read. So, but the first verse of the Tattva Bodha is actually in verse form. It is in a meter, and I believe this is the Anushtup Chanda meter, same as the Bhagavad Gita, right? Dharma Kshetre,
In Bhagavad Gita,
Kurukshetre.
all the verse is not in Anushtup. Some have
Sorry?
other, what you call, Alankara. Not Alankara, what you call it as Chandas. Yeah.
Is this Anushtup Chandas?
This is Anushtup Chandas, but in Bhagavad Gita, all shlokas are not in Anushtup
All are
Chandas.
not. There are about Trishtup Chanda, right? A couple of shlokas there.
I don't know the name of the other chandas, but
Yeah.
there is other,
Yeah.
like,
So, but at least
yeah,
600 or
especially in
650,
Vishwarupa Sandarshan Yoga, there
right?
is a lot of shlokas in other chandas. I don't know the name of it. I'm not able to recapitulate it.
I see. No, but what I mean is that at least 650 of the 700 slokas,
Yeah. Most of them are
yeah,
in
so the
Anushtup.
majority of the Gita is Anushtup Chandas. So I'm just trying to say that this verse over here is the same Chandas.
Yeah, of course,
So,
yeah.
this establishes a twofold purpose. The first is that anytime you begin any work in life, you have to start with an auspicious invocation. You have to start with a Mangalacharan. Pujya Swamiji goes as far as saying that you should not really read a book which doesn't begin with a Mangalacharan, because you have to be prayerful, worshipful, thankful to start the work and also to finish it. You need that, what's it called? Daivam, that punyam, which goes into the completion. So it's definitely good to always begin things with the Mangalacharan. And there's a threefold purpose for the Mangalacharan itself. The first is that you wish for the successful completion of the work. Second is that you wish that it is well read and well understood by people. And the third is that you hope that it gets put to good use by people. So, if you begin a work, there could be so many different things which can get in the way for completing it, right? First is you could get really lazy, you could become unmotivated, you may lose interest, you may find some difficulties in life which require your immediate attention, so you cannot focus on your work. So many problems can get in the way. And so the first aspect of Mangalacharan is that you are praying to Ishvara that may I please be free from the obstacles that get in the way of completing this work. The second is that you complete a work. One second. Can you mute yourself, please? Just for there's still some background noise. So the second thing is that you hope for your work to be well read and well understood by other people, because you may write something very profound and deep, but if there are not aspirant seekers to understand them, then it is pretty much meaningless. And the third thing is that even if a person understands it, there's no guarantee that he may put it to good use, or he may pass it on to other people, or he may even give the right meaning of what you explain. And so that is the third motivation behind the Mangalacharan. So this Mangalacharan, has all the essence of um, the motivations behind the Mangalacharan, as well as it has some meaning behind it. So here, if you look, it says Vasudevendram Yogindram. Vasudevendra could have been the guru of this particular Acharya, or one of his gurus also. So when I say this text was written by Shankaracharya, it may not necessarily have been Adi Shankaracharya. It could have been one of the Shankaracharyas within the Parampara. So Vasudevendra could refer to his Guru Vasudeva, or it could also refer to Sri Krishna, as you are beginning with a prayer. So that is ambiguous. It is left for us to interpret. Yogindra means he is the lord of the yogas, the king of the yogas. So when you say Indra, Indra actually means the lord or the king or the almighty in heaven who presides over all the other devas. So over here, the one who has mastered the yogas is Yogindram. So yoga plus Indram becomes Yogindram. And Natva Jnana Pradam Gurum. So the one who imparts the guru who imparts the knowledge of the self. Mumukshunam Hitathaya. So Mumukshunam for the sake of the seeker, Hitathaya for his benefit. So for the benefit of the Mumukshu, Tattva Bodha Vidiyate. Therefore this text, Tattva Bodha is unfolded. So, if I put the verse in a nutshell, he's worshipping his Acharya, Vasudevendra, and calling him the Yogindram, the one who has mastered the yogas. And he's thankful to him for imparting the knowledge of the self for the aspirant Mumukshu for his benefit. And therefore, this text, Sattva is unfolded. So, this is the meaning of the first verse. So, with that, we'll get into the text proper. So, I thought, let me just read the first verse. It says, or the second verse. So, this talks about the Sādhana Chatuṣṭaya. The Sādhana Chatuṣṭaya are the fourfold qualifications that are required for the seeker. So, before you begin anything in life, there is one thing that is important, and that is who is the adhikari, who is the one who is qualified for this teaching, right? So, if you start your PhD course, the qualification you require that is at least a master's degree, and you need to give your GRE, your SAT exam, whatever. Different things you need to do in order to qualify for something that you are able to do further. So same way, anything that you do in life requires qualifications. That includes Vedanta. Vedanta is not for everyone. In fact, Vedanta is termed as a Guhya Rahasyam, a very deep and dark secret that is kept inside a cave, and you need to enter that cave with a light in order to find it. So it is certainly not available for everyone's consumption. There are some people who may not understand it. There are some people who may not even like it because their own personal ideas would get in the way. Can you please mute your speaker? Just whoever is. 1 second. Yeah, please. So I just request people that if there's some background noise, just keep the speaker muted so that it's easier to. Yeah. So where was I? Okay. So yeah, the Sadhana Chatuṣṭaya, the first talk of Tattva Bodha, is going to unfold what are the qualifications that a student requires to enter this teaching of Vedanta. And the qualifications do not have to be available in full measure. They need to be at least there in partial measure, right? To some extent, you need to have developed some of these qualifications so that the teaching becomes more meaningful to you. It's not a matter of whether a person has a right to learn or he doesn't have a right to learn. It's just a matter of how useful it may be to a person and how much he can benefit from it. So, yeah. So the first qualification we have is Vivekaha. So would whoever's been exposed to Vedanta, like Smitaji or Pinaji or whoever, could you give us a brief understanding of Viveka based on what you learned? Everyone's done Tattvabodha here, I guess. At least most people have been through it earlier, so it would be nice to participate. How about Unnati? Okay, I think I should.
Well, I'm not too sure,
Yeah.
but I can try. Vivekaha means basically to discriminate, and this discrimination is not basically in the negative sense, which we usually see discrimination in terms of racial or gender discrimination, but over here it's discriminating between what is existing or how is the world created within the time and space frame. So I don't know the perfect
That's a
definition
good
of
one.
it though.
That's really good. Um, like yeah, as you said, discrimination here, it's not like black, white, and gender
Yeah.
discrimination, but it's discrimination based on coming up with with a strong sense of understanding what is right and what is wrong, and to understand the nature of things the way they are. So that is also a form of discrimination, right? Separating the wheat from the chaff, they say. So if you you must have seen your grandmother separating the wheat and removing all the small pebbles or whatever that are there, right? So that is also a form of discrimination where you know that
Yeah,
something is
so
to be
sorting.
consumed. Yeah, you're assorting. You know that this is to be consumed and this is to be rejected. And so over here, we at least it presupposes a basic qualification on the part of the student. And the student knows that this whole jagat around him that he sees, the changing world, is in a ever changing state of flux. It's always in some form of a movement, some form of a transformation, transfiguration. Nothing that he ever witnesses around him will remain eternal, right? Everything that is there in the world will keep changing. He has that understanding that the world changes, but there is a person who is objectifying the world, and that person, the subject who is objectifying the world, remains unchanged. So that much basic understanding he has. He does not need to know that this is the Atma, it is Satchitananda, and this and that. He may not necessarily know this much, but at least he knows that I, the person, the individual, the self, or whatever you want to call it, am unchanging with respect to the changing world, because I am the one who is able to um, write down these changes, to observe these changes, to mark these changes, right? Because if you are also constantly changing, if you the self are changing, then how can you mark something else that's changing? How can you observe change when you yourself are changing, right? So another example for that is that, let's say if your eyes, the iris or the of your eyes or the cornea was blue colored, then the whole world would appear blue to you, and then you would not be able to discriminate between what is red and what is green and what is blue. All colors would be only one for you. Similarly, if you were in a state of constant change, then you could not be the one who is able to mark the change outside of you. And therefore, this much basic understanding the student is supposed to have, that the world is in a ever-changing state and I am the one who is not changing. So he knows that there is something eternal. He's heard of the Atma from his teacher or from some friends or whoever at some point in his life. He knows that this Atma is supposed to be eternal, but everything else is non-eternal. The second thing is that to know that something is eternal and something is not eternal does not mean you reject what is not eternal, right? Whatever is not eternal still has its transactional use. So if you sit on a chair, it's comfortable. It will not hurt your back if you're like standing whole day. So you know that whatever is there in the world is for your use. It's to be used for you, by you. But it is not to be something that you are taking as eternal. Because if you have a house, if you have a car, whatever you take, and if you treat that as eternal, if it breaks down tomorrow, then you'll have a problem with it. So that much basic understanding should be there, that what changes will continue to change, and it may change for the better or for the worse. That is something that is not up to you to decide. All you have to know is that the only constant in this world is that there is something called change. Change is the only constant, whereas for me, the self, I am changeless. Now, the student does not really need to understand this in detail, but at least he needs to have that basic faith in the fact that he is changeless. And then that faith will lead him to the understanding, as we will see later. So, Swamiji gives the example that also when you understand that things are non-eternal and you understand the nature of the objective world which continues to change, you also know how to put it to better use. Like you don't sit on a cardboard chair, right? It'll collapse. It'll collapse under your weight. You know that I should sit on a wooden chair or a plastic chair or whatever, not on a cardboard chair. And so you have to know the world for what it is, objects for what their qualities are, and also to what use you can put them. So that is something that the student is expected to know, like just basic understanding of eternal versus non-eternal. The second is vairagyaha. So vairagyaha means at least a certain amount of dispassion for what is here or elsewhere. In many of these Abrahamic religions, you'll see that the reward is an eternal heaven somewhere, right? It says that okay, if you live your life as per this person's terms, then you will gain eternal heaven. You will be there with the Father or whatever these terminologies they use. But then Vedanta teaches us, reality teaches us, science teaches us, our observation of the world teaches us that this universe, whatever is there in the universe, is always non-eternal. It is always changing. The universe also had a beginning. The universe will also have an end. The earth had a beginning. the sun had a beginning, the moon had a beginning, everything started at a given time. The celestial world that you see beyond this planet is also always in a state of movement and flux. So it becomes very improper for us to assume that there is something called heaven which is eternal, right? Because in our Vedic conception, the idea of Swarga, I won't use the word heaven also, now I'll use Swarga. The concept of Swarga is also a place you go to exhaust your punya. But once your punya is exhausted, then you have to come back. A given limited set of actions cannot earn you an eternal result. A result that is eternal will be born of eternal countless number of actions, which is not possible. Because in a human life, if you live for 75, 80 years, there are only so many actions that you can perform. And the results that you receive are in proportion to the actions that you perform, right? The actions that you do. And therefore, if you are even going to a place like Swarga, then once your time is up and once your punya is run out, then you'll come back on the earthly plane. You'll come back on one of the lokas which are similar to Earth or on the Earth itself. So then for the mature individual, he knows that I must be dispassionate towards things that I hear, and not dispassionate as in I'm not interested, but dispassionate that means that I'm not overly attached to these things. So I should not yearn for a strong sense of enjoyment for things that are either here, nor should I yearn for a sense of enjoyment for things which are in the hereafter, like in some place called heaven or whatever. So that kind of dispassion should be there, that I'm complete with myself, I'm happy with what I have, and I don't need to be anywhere else in order to seek this sense of completion. Did someone unmute? Oh, okay. I thought if you wanted to say something. So the third thing that we look at, is this clear so far though, Vairagya and Vivekaha?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So, the way Swamiji describes it is that Vairagyaha with relationship to Vivekaha makes more sense. So, Vivekaha is the discriminative process between what is eternal and what is non-eternal. And Vairagyaha means that you are dispassionate towards the things which are non-eternal. You are practicing a sense of Vairagya towards things which are constantly changing. Because if a thing keeps changing and you expect it to be permanent and you are attached to it, then it's obviously going to hurt you. You cannot lean on a cardboard chair. That way, the cardboard chair crumples. Same way, this whole Jagat, at least in the long term, it will crumple. It may not crumple as quickly as a cardboard chair, but it will crumple in the longer time span, maybe a few years, maybe 100 years, maybe a billion years. But ultimately, whatever is there is going to change, and it's not going to be in the same form that you first witnessed it. And therefore, you should not lean against the objects of the world too much. And here by leaning, I mean emotionally. Don't be emotionally dependent on the world around you, because the world around you will continue to disappoint you as long as you invest in it. You have to invest in it for your use, for your transaction, for your benefit, for the sake of the world and so on, for the sake of your family, everybody. But don't become too enamored by it, don't become too attached by it. And that is the understanding of Vairagya and this passion. So one common question people usually have is like, if I'm dispassionate towards something, then why will I do anything, right? So again, here dispassion doesn't mean that you're not interested or you don't care. It simply means that you have that strong sense of vivekaha which is backing it, that I must not become too overly attached to anything. I must continue transacting the way I am. I must go on with my day-to-day chores and my daily life and my job and my responsibilities elsewhere. But I should know that, not to become too attached to any one thing. Because if I become attached to any one thing, I know that it's not going to remain in the same shape in the future. And if it goes away, then you're at a loss. Nobody else is. So that is what Vairagya is. Shat Sampatihi is the third Sadhana Chatuṣṭaya. So Sadhana, as we spoke about earlier, and I should have mentioned this first, Sadhana is a means. And Chatuṣṭaya means four, like the fourfold means, the fourfold qualifications, right? So the third of the fourfold qualifications is actually divided into 6 parts. And that is called Shat Sampatihi. So Shat means 6, and Sampatihi is wealth, the sixfold wealth. And out of them, the first is Shama, which is control of the mind. Second is Dhamma, which is control of the senses. Then you have Uparama, which is sticking to what is to be done, living a life of Dharma. Titiksha, which is like patience, forbearance, remaining centered between opposites. Shraddha is the faith and the teachings of your Vedas as unfolded by the Guru. Samadhan is focus. steadfastness, and mumukshutvam is the last of the fourfold qualifications, which is a desire for moksha, freedom. So let's look at each of these in detail. Shama is control of the mind, right? So we know that the mind is like a monkey; it jumps from one branch to the other, and it never really does what you want it to do unless you are having some control over it. So it's really essential to control your mind and to govern it as opposed to letting it govern you. So, going back to the Gita, the Katha Upanishad, there's an example. It's called the Ratha. Is the example of the chariot. So Ratha Kalpana it's called. So over here you take the chariot to be comparable to the human body. You take the horses to be comparable to the senses. The reins of the horses, the reins which control the horses are the mind. The charioteer is the intellect, and the person who owns the chariot is the self, the Atma. So and the road that you travel on is your life. It's your journey through life, and the destination you have to reach is moksha, right? So this example is very visual. So try to imagine it that way: that the chariot is the body, the horses are the senses, the reins are the mind, the charioteer is the buddhi, the person who owns the chariot is the atma, the road is the journey through life, and the destination is moksha. So just reiterating it so it can be very visually clear. Now, if your chariot is guided by the horses. The horses are the senses. So the chariot is the body, and the road that you go on will depend upon where your horses tread. The treading of the horses itself is dependent upon the reins, the mind, right? The reins which pull at it. So if you pull the horse in one direction, it will go in that direction. If you pull it somewhere else, it will go in the other direction. So over here, the mind controls the senses, and the senses take the body in a certain direction. The mind itself is controlled by the charioteer, the buddhi. So here, if it is up to the charioteer to tug the reins at the right place and at the right time with the right intensity and so on, right? So there are a lot of things that the buddhi has to keep in mind before to control the mind. So if the charioteer is to guide the horses in the right direction, it has to know how much pressure to put at the reins and what direction to tug it at and so on. So the buddhi has to always be in control of the mind. The buddhi has to back up the decisions of the mind. So over here, the control of the mind is really an exercising of a buddhi, to exercise the buddhi to the fullest extent. And so now the mind is responsible for your emotional thoughts, and the buddhi is responsible for the rational thoughts. So there's nothing wrong in being emotional and to be emotionally moved and touched and so on, but it has to support. It has to be supported by rational and logic and reasoning. So that is something that's very important. But now, it may not always be the case that you're in complete control of your mind, right? There might be occasions where you cannot control your thoughts. They continue to flow, and you don't really have much say over them. And so, in such cases, you practice Dhamma, which is control of the senses and your expressions. So, one simple example to illustrate this is that, let's say somebody has infuriated you very badly, and you have a strong desire to hit them just for whatever reason, right? So the thought that you want to hit this person has occurred in your mind already. You're not able to control the thought, but at least at the sense level and at the expression level, you're able to control your expression that yes, I must not go and beat that person up. I must refrain from that because it's the right thing to do. So if you cannot control Shama, then at least aim for Dhamma. But if you look at it, if you are able to control the thought itself, then you don't need to control the senses any longer, right? Because the thought goes into feeding the senses, and the senses feed the actions of the body and so on. So over here, control of the senses refers to the karmendriya and the jnanendriya. So the karmendriya are the organs of action, which are related to the expression that I spoke about over here. If you can control your mind, you don't need to control your senses. But if you cannot control your mind, at least try to control your senses. So that is the recommendation of the Shastra. Third is that Uparama. So you have to do what is to be done. Live a life of dharma. Live a life of virtue and righteousness. Because ultimately, even if your benefit is in the short run is there by doing something adharmic, in the long run you will suffer for it. It's a law of life. It's a law of karma. So an example over here would be that if you go to a store and you buy something for 100 rupees and the cost of the product is 40, but by mistake the person gives you 60 rupees. back, or he gives you some extra change, then you have to inform the person that, yeah, you gave me some extra money by mistake. This belongs to you, so please take it. Now, another person may think that what is wrong? It was a person's mistake. I can take it. I can go away with it, right? I got some free cash, so why not? So this kind of thinking is defeating the idea of dharma. That here, even if you are inconvenienced temporarily by doing something that is right, you should still do it, because in the long run, that is the only thing to do, and you will see that in the long run, it is benefiting you alone. So uparama is to be doing what is to be done regardless of personal consequences. Titiksha is patience, tolerance, forbearance, being centered between the opposites. So if it's really very hot, then don't complain about the heat. Don't complain too much about the cold. Don't complain about the situation. Try to be at peace with the situation and the world around you. Try to be centered. Try to be equanimous. Because, uh, did someone just unmute? Yeah, yeah, you can comment by the way if you want to. Just
Can you tell me something more about Uparama? Because whatever analogy you gave wasn't really convincing for me.
okay.
Because when you're practicing all this, you have already focused your mind that you don't want to follow adharma.
Yeah.
So that analogy, whatever you gave, like if you get extra change, it obviously comes by virtue that you would give it back. So can you give some other analogy so that I can understand it better?
Yeah, so first of all, for people like us, it is very obvious, right? That obviously you have to give it back, but there are many people who don't. I've seen, I've had people steal money from me also at times. I've seen some of my friends who have lost during these transactions. So there are some people who are so desensitized through doing the wrong things that they think that that is a virtue for them. That okay, chalo, I got some free cash, I can take my friends out for a movie or for food or whatever. So that kind of thinking is actually there in society, though we may not really believe that because we are good people and we follow dharma, at least to
Yeah,
this
yeah, I
extent.
understand what you're
So
saying. Context
yeah.
is good. Why I asked you to give some other analogy so that I understand it better, so that I can relate it to myself.
Okay,
Like,
so let's take, I don't know if you can relate it to yourself, but let's look at the Gita.
hmm,
Arjuna had to fight a war, Dharma Yuddha. He
hmm,
had to hurt some of his relatives and friends as a result of it, right? So over here,
exactly.
his attachments, his lack of vairagya was instructing him that, oh, these are my family. He was coming up with all sorts of justifications for it. That
Yes, yes.
how can I fight my family? Krishna Bhagavan, you are saying that knowledge is superior to action. Why can't I become a sannyasi? Let me go away from the war. Let me retreat. So what lack of uparama does is that because of your lack of vairagya, you're attached to a particular situation or a particular outcome. You want the outcome to be a certain way. In Arjuna's case, his outcome was that I want my family members to live and I want to go back to the forest as a beggar or as a sannyasi or whatever. So over here, his judgment was clouded, and therefore he was coming up with wrong justifications to support his theory that yes, knowledge is superior to action, therefore I should retreat to the forest and I should let go of this war. But Krishna Bhagavan tells him that even at a personal cost, it is true that your loved ones, your family, and all of these people that you witness today, they are all going to fall. By the end of the war, I can already see that they are all dead. In my eyes, in my larger vision, all of these people have been extinguished from the face of the earth. But the truth is that their reality, the substance that gives life to them, the self is undying. It is unchanging. It is eternal. It is endless. It cannot be cut by the sword. It cannot be wet by the water. It cannot be dried by the air. It cannot be burnt by the fire. So all of these things, Bhagavan has to convince Arjuna that your thinking is very noble, but it is misplaced. It is a misunderstanding. And this misunderstanding is there because you lack vairagya, and therefore you give justifications for adharma and you treat adharma as dharma, right? Most people, at least most sensible people, will not want to perform adharma purposely. But their problem is that they may perform adharma thinking that it is dharma, and that is where the problem arises. So you
Hmm.
have to go back to your basic sense of values. You have to go back to some of these examples from our Shastra, and you have to try to see how it relates to your life. You have to see what these greater characters would have done if they were in my situation. You should see what Krishna would tell me if I were in this situation, what Shankaracharya would tell his students if I was in this situation. So
Yeah, it's convincing enough. I understand Uparama.
I see. Cool. I'm glad I convinced you.
No,
So
but then it was, now I'm able to relate to it.
yeah, no, I was just joking. But it's a very good question, and definitely, ultimately, as you say, we have to inculcate all of these values in our life. These virtues are something
So
that
if I
we have
have
to
to
live.
relate it, I need to relate the analogy as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we all have to definitely relate to it, so it's good. So that is Uparama. Then you have titiksha. Titiksha is like we spoke about it already, that you try to be centered in whatever you do in life. Don't be swayed by the opposites. That is what it really means, right? If a situation is not favorable to you, it's okay. It is what it is. So my teachers, one of my teachers, Swamini Swatma Vedanta ji, she gives this example of sthane, that something bad happened out there, there was a tornado, okay, my house was destroyed, that's bad, right? You have to go and take the steps required to fix it. Of course, you have to go, you have to call the firefighters, you have to fix it, whatever, you have to do these things. But at the same time, you have to understand that sthane, it is what it is. It is not up to me to fight what has already happened. I can change it, I can try to change it, but I cannot say that, oh, aisa kyun hua, why did this happen, why me, why me, why me. That kind of thinking should go away, because the world is not really going to please you all the time. There will always be things in the world which are displeasing to you. There will always be things which will bring sadness to you. But you have to learn to deal with it with equanimity, with happiness, with joy. You have to be peaceful with the world around you. You have to be peaceful with yourself. You have to be peaceful with your body, with your mind, with the jagat, with your relationships, with the roles that you play. So to be centered and to be in the center of things is what titiksha is, because it gives you a good vantage point. It gives you a very objective way to look at the world. You become more tolerant towards other people. You become more patient in your relationships. You become more alert. You become more available. Your senses, your mind, your intellect, it's all available to pursue things better, because you are not fraught with these disorders in the mind. You're not fraught with mental illnesses. You're not fraught with depression and so on. So it's a very good thing to develop this virtue of titiksha, that you are able to center yourself between all forms of opposites, regardless of whether you like them or you don't like them. Then we come to a very important portion, which is Shraddha. The Vedas are useless for a person who has no Shraddha in them, right? It's like, how can you, embark on this entire teaching, this study, unless you find that there is something relevant and something meaningful over here for you? And therefore, the faith and the teachings of the Vedas as unfolded by the Guru, this is very important. You need Shraddha and Ishvara, of course. Bhagavan, you have to have Shraddha and Ishvara. You have to have Shraddha and Shruti, which is the Vedas. And you have to have Shraddha and the Guru that unfolds it. The Guru may not necessarily be a Brahma Nishtha, but at least he should be a Brahma Shrotriya. He should be firm in the teaching. He should understand the nature of the self very well. And preferably, he should also live a life of dharma and rectitude. Because many times, we are misled by the media in many instances, right? You see that there's this whole campaign of defaming our gurus which has taken place. And if people lose Shraddha in the gurus, and they also lose Shraddha in the Shastra, because the guru is ultimately the person who is responsible for bringing you closer to the teaching. The Vedas cannot talk to you, they cannot unfold themselves to you. If you pick up the Vedic scriptures tomorrow, you'll find that they are very ambiguous. Not only ambiguous, they are completely impossible to understand for a person who does not have a background. So, just an example I like to give is that if you take the Purusha Sukta, right? Sahasra Shirsha Purushaha Sahasraksha Sahasrapad. This Purushaha, this Ishvara, has 1,000 heads, and then he has 1,000 arms and 1,000 legs, 1,000 eyes. It doesn't make sense. If you look at it literally, you'll wonder that, is there some monster in the sky who has like 1,000 heads? Is he like a Rakshasa? You need to be explained this by the Acharya, that the 1,000 heads simply signify that all the jivas, all the jiva jantus in this jagat are nothing but a manifestation of this same Ishvara. And then every head that is there is Ishvara's head. Every sight that you lay your eyes on is nothing but Ishvara's glory. Whatever you see is Ishvara. Whatever you don't see is Ishvara. Whatever you are is Ishvara. Whatever you think you aren't is also Ishvara. The whole jagat around you is Ishvara. And you, the one who objectifies the jagat, is also Ishvara. So it's very important to have that larger vision by the Guru, because the Guru understands the Shastra to the fullest extent. And he also understands the student that he is unfolding this to. So he understands the level of the student. The Guru is not a preacher, he's a teacher. He has to teach, and to teach you have to get to the level of the student and to take him up to a higher level. Ultimately, the goal of a good Guru is to produce a student that is better than him. That is what I feel. Because, if you look at Shankaracharya also, his Guru was a great Acharya, Bhagavad-pada, right? But Govinda Bhagavad was a great Acharya, but Shankaracharya is more well known, he's more renowned. So, here the Guru will understand you so well, and he will understand the teaching so well that he will make sure that you assimilate to the fullest extent. The other glory of our parampara is that it is a conduit through which this teaching is passed. And each conduit, each section of the conduit is like an acharya, and then you keep moving forward, and the knowledge is filtered through, it's passed through, it's expanded upon. So there might be certain prakriyas and methodologies which did not exist like 5,000 years ago, which may exist today because of the blessings of our present day gurus. So they say Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam, right? So this entire parampara that is there, all the way up to our present guru, we bow down to the entire parampara. So the guru is not an individual, not an island, but he is part of the greater ocean. And this ocean here is the parampara, and all the islands here are the different gurus within the parampara. So the guru has the entire teaching tradition of the parampara that has passed, the sampradaya that is passed through the parampara, which he hands down to the student. And so it is very essential for you to have faith in the teachings of the Vedas as well as the teaching of the Guru, because ultimately the Guru, holds the Vedas in his hand and he imparts the words of the Vedas through his mouth. And that is something to be understood and assimilated. So that is what Shraddha is. Any questions on this so far? Okay, so if that's clear, we look at Samadha. Yeah, sorry.
No questions.
Okay,
No doubt.
I see. So we look at Samadhanam, which is focus and steadfastness. So anytime you have to accomplish a goal, you need to be focused on it. You cannot be distracted, right? I know a lot of Vedantins also, friends, whoever, they think Vedanta is something that you do between so and so hours, that this is my Vedanta time and this is the rest of my life. Vedanta is an all-pervading thing. It is your very outlook. It is your very, very, philosophy towards life. It is what life is. Brahman is never separated from you, right? Brahman is there in everything that you do. At every instance, you should be connected to this higher truth. It's not a subject that you learn in a classroom that you do for the sake of understanding. It is for the sake of living. You have to live a life of a Vaidika. You have to live the life of a Vedantin. And in order to do that, you have to remain focused on your goal. You have to have that vision and you have to keep it in your mind always. So, there are many things which come in the form of distractions for us, right? So we have to know that what is my ultimate purpose and what I have to remain focused on. You do everything else also, but this should be your primary focus. Like Swamini ji gives an example that if you have to go to an airport, right? There'll be, let's say you are a couple of hours early. So you leave your home and then your friend calls you that, do you have some time? You say, yeah, I have some time. Okay, let's go for a cup of coffee. Sure. That you have some coffee, you reflect on some of your childhood memories and so on. Good, beautiful things, wonderful. Then you go on, somebody else calls you, right? And then you say, Acha, chalo, let's go and meet this person. So you go there. Okay, do you have time to play a game of cricket quickly before you go? Yeah, I have 30 minutes left. Sure, I can play. And then you forget you miss your flight ultimately, right? Because you get so distracted by the things around you that the main focus is lost, and you start focusing on the distractions along the way. And so these come in the way of pratibandakas, which are obstacles. So you have to know that yes, there is a life to lead, there are roles to play, there are expectations to be met from other people and so on. But ultimately my goal is this. Now whatever your goal is, Samadhan doesn't define your goal, but at least tells you that you remain focused on what your goal is so that you don't go astray. You are led in the same direction. Everything that you do takes you towards that goal. So the person who knows how to plan his life well will plan the activities in such a way that it goes towards that goal, right? It becomes like a stepping stone from one place to the other, ultimately leading to the goal. But you try to avoid the things which take you away from it. So remain focused, remain steadfast, and continue to pursue all your activities in life, keeping this goal ultimately in mind. So that is what Samadhanam is. And finally, you have Mumukshutvam, which is the fourth of the Sadhana Chatuṣṭaya. So right now we looked at the sixfold wealth, the Shat Sampati. Now we look at the fourth and final qualification, which is Mumukshutvam, a yearning desire for moksha, freedom. Can anyone elaborate upon the importance of Mumukshutvam over here? Just based on what you might have heard, or come on, Vedantins, whoever has studied this.
Moksha is eternal Ananda, I guess.
What is
There's no
eternal Ananda?
rebirth. Satchit Ananda.
Moksha is not Satchidananda. The self, Atma is Satchidananda, right?
Yeah, Atmas, of course.
So what is moksha?
That there is no rebirth.
Yeah, but that is kind of like okay. So let's look at it this way. For whom is there no rebirth?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's why I'm asking, like, for whom is there no rebirth? Like, who is the person for whom there is no rebirth?
There is no rebirth for the body because Atma is anyways eternal.
Okay, so there's no
A
rebirth for the body.
person who is free from this samsara, the entire thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's no rebirth for the person who's free, and the only way this
Yeah.
freedom can be gained is through knowledge of the self. Freedom cannot be gained through action. That we have seen in detail in the previous Jnana Yoga also. That actions lead to limited consequences, right? So one second. I was just checking the time. Yeah, we can exceed if you guys have like 10 minutes extra, we can talk about this. So knowledge and action are two very different things. Actions earn papam and punyam, whereas knowledge is free. It's free of all of these dualities and whatever. So let's say if I perform a good action, punyakari karma, right? I help somebody cross the street. Now that action is going to give rise to a karma. And over here, since my action was punya, the karma that will come back to me will be pleasurable. It will be punya, which comes back in the form of a pleasure. If I perform endless actions, let's say I live for 80 years and I perform like 8 billion different types of actions, just to throw a number, then I'm going to earn an equivalent units of punya karma in proportion to the actions I've performed. Now, if we are talking about something being eternal, first of all, let's dispense with that word and let's look at something to be permanent. Let's take something that's permanent. When you talk about permanent, you simply mean that which does not change in time. But we have seen that actions have results which come in time, and when the results end, they go away in time also, right? Such as if you go to Swarga, you've seen so many stories in our Itihasas and Puranas where these individuals perform some good punya karmas and then they go to Swarga for a while. But what happens after that? Do they live there forever? No. They have to come back to the mortal, the worldly, the plane that we are in right now. And then they have to again exhaust their karmas, they have to again build new karmas, they again go back to Swarga. If they do papam karma, they go back to Naraka. So clearly the point I'm trying to establish here is that moksha cannot be gained through actions because actions are
Not at
limited
all.
and results are limited, whereas moksha is free from limitations. There's no moksha for 100 years and then you come back again, right? Moksha is moksha. Once you got it, you've got it. There's no coming back. So
I
therefore,
have a doubt.
yes.
Now, once somebody is dead,
Huh.
Atma is got separated from the body.
No, no.
Why?
The Atma does not see. So that is what. This is a big misconception people have that somehow they think that every body has one Atma. You have one Atma, it is there in your body, then after you die, it will go to another body. I have one Atma, it will go to another
No,
body.
no, 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 no. I never meant that.
Okay.
I
Atma
never
doesn't get
meant.
separated from the body ever, right?
Yeah, it doesn't get attached to the body itself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that I understand. What I'm trying to say is, um, I I find this I understand that Atma and body doesn't attach to each other and it has no connection. Subconscious memory, virtual, and what Atma itself. It has no rupa, no definitions, and Tattvamasi, something like that.
Yeah. But
What?
uh, but this is not actually correct because if you say the Atma and the body have no connections, right?
Yeah.
We are looking at it from the Vyavaharika level. So in the
Oh,
Vyavaharika, we have two things. We have something called Atma, we have something called Anatma. If you're able
Anatma.
to see my mouse, Atma, eternal.
Hey, excuse
Anatma,
me. Anatma, is it a Sanskrit word?
yeah, it's a Sanskrit word.
Anatma? I've never
Anatma.
heard.
I'm telling you, it's a
Okay,
Sanskrit word.
okay, I should check then.
Yeah. So anyway, Anatma, you have Atma and you have Anatma. Anatma means not Atma. Whatever is not Atma is Anatma, right? But this is a very lower form of understanding, which is only for our discriminative purposes. Because right now we have a world where we are used to dualities, we are used to transactions. There is a subject and there's an object. We are used to that. And therefore we treat the subject as eternal, which is the Atma, and the object as non-eternal, which is the Anatma. The body, the senses, the mind, the world, all of this is Anatma. So from that aspect, you are correct in saying that the Atma and the body are separate. The Atma is untouched by the body. But now when we look at the Paramathika Satyam, the ultimate reality, the actual Tattvam, then you come to realize that the very essence, the substance of the body is also the Atma only. It is the Atma which lends life, which lends existence to the whole Jagat, including your body. So if we are looking at it from the Tattva Drishti, then it is not true. There is only Atma. The body is also comprised of nothing but manifestation of the Atma. But if you're looking at it from the Vyavaharika Drishti, then there is definitely a difference. So right now when we talk about Vivekaha, when we talk about Mumukshutva, when we talk about Moksha and all of these things, you have to look at the vantage point from which you're discussing, right? So usually, when I discuss about the Atma, I try not to isolate it as simple consciousness that is pervading the body, but I try to even incorporate the Sat and Ananda aspects of it. You see what I'm saying? If you look at the Atma as consciousness, then
Actually,
there's
my
a,
doubt was,
yeah,
how do I relate that Swarga and Naraka? I somehow don't believe in this at all. Swarga and Naraka something for me. I don't know if it's true or not.
it's,
But how, whatever pleasure
yeah.
somebody tries to give themselves in this world is for the body and not for the Atma, right? So how some you go to Swarga, you go to Naraka, and there you enjoy the good things and bad things. I don't know how to relate it because somehow I'm not able to convince myself that. Did you understand what I'm asking?
Okay, so your first statement that you're not sure if Swarga and Naraka are there, right?
Yeah, because it's just
See.
Atma.
Now let's be honest. The Shastra says it is there. Now it is up to you to accept it or not, right? Because
Shastra says
ultimately,
it exists.
yeah,
Oh, okay, fine then.
yeah.
No problem.
You have Indra, you have Varuna, you have all these devas. They are in Swarga. If you look at one portion we have, it gives you the gradations of the different celestial beings, right? So right now you have a Manushya. I'll actually get into this detail when we talk about Ananda aspect of it, but let me
Okay,
just give
okay.
a
If
recap.
Shastra says it exists, I have no questions to him.
Yeah. See, so I'll actually tell you also. You have Manushya. That's a first grade. I'm not talking about the Rakshasas and sorry, the Danavas, the ones who are in Naraka. Let's start from the Manushya level. Manushya, then you have Manushya Gandharva, then you have Deva Gandharva, then you have Karma Deva. No, you have Pitrus, you have Karma Devas, then you have Devas, then you have Indra, then you have Brihaspati, and then you have Brahmaji. These are the different
Correct.
Upadhis in rising proportion, right? So you have 14 lokas, you have 7 narakas, you have Vittala, Atala, Patala. These are like some of the 7 narakas, and then you have swargas, which are like you have Bhur. So Bhur is the earthly plane. Bhuvaha, Suvaha, Mahaha, Tapaha, Janaha, Satya. So these are the different lokas. So Satya Loka is also called Brahma Loka. Brahma Loka is the pinnacle of Swarga, where you get the maximum amount of pleasures and the like almost virtually no pain. So that is where Brahmaloka stands, and that is where Brahmaji is. So we have all these different lokas that are outlined in the Shastras, and they are definitely Smitaji made a comment about saying they are mental planes. No, they are physical planes. They are actual, you can call them locations in space, you can call them different physical dimensions, whatever. So this is not, there's a very uh, fashionable saying that, oh, heaven and hell are a state of mind, right? That is not true. Heaven and hell are physical planes. They may not be sharing the same dimensions that we have, perhaps. We don't really know the details, but they may be in a different dimension. If I have to give my personal opinion, I feel that since the Prithvi Loka is so easily accessible by the devas, Indra, Agni, and so on. I have a feeling that Swarga is separated from us only dimensionally through different dimensions, not through distance in actual space. That is why these beings of higher dimension or whatever are able to access us, but we are not able to access them. Now, I want to make a caveat that this is simply my interpretation of what the Shastra says, because the Shastra has not gotten into details about where Swarga and Naraka are, what are their geographical locations in space. But what is a fact is that they are physical locations which exist. Okay, so and not physical, but since they are non-welfare beliefs, then how do we? You reconcile it by Shraddha. That is the only way to reconcile it. There are some things that the Shastra says which have absolutely no worldly evidence for it, right? So Smita ji is asking like, how do we reconcile this since they are non-verifiable? The very fact that they are non-verifiable implies that you are only using 5 pramanas, not 6 pramanas. Let's go back to that slide. When you talk about verifiable beliefs, these are the different pramanas we can use. Pratyaksha pramana, which is your direct sensory perception. What I see with my 5 senses. What my eyes see, I can verify. What my ears hear, I can verify. What my skin touches, I can verify. What my nose smells, I can verify. Right? So what my tongue tastes, I can verify. I can verify the pratyaksha pramanam. Then pratyaksha pramanams can also be enhanced. How do they get enhanced? If I want to look at something very minute, then I can use a microscope to enhance it. I can use a magnifying glass. If I want to look at something that's very far away and very distant and very dim, then I can look at it through a telescope, right? If I want to hear something that's very far away, or if I have a hearing problem, I can use a hearing aid. If I want to see infrared light, I can use infrared glasses. I can use ultraviolet lens. I can do a lot of things. I can enhance my 5 senses, but there's no way in which I can add a 6th sense, if you get what I mean, right? So the ways to verify the physical world around us are through direct sensory perceptions, which are as they are or which can be enhanced by you. That is the first thing we understand. The second thing we understand is you have inference. I can infer that there is fire, though I do not see it. Why? Because if I know that there is smoke, then I can infer that there is fire. So inference is the second sense perception. Third is arthapatti, where I presume. I make double, triple, quadruple, quintuple inferences, which allow me to draw a conclusion about something. Upamana is knowledge through comparison. Remember, everybody knows the buffalo and the bison example, so I'm not going to reiterate that. But you can infer something through comparison. You can infer through something by its absence, anupalabdhi. So if I approach you and I say I'm not holding a pot, then you can infer the absence of a pot through the absence of cognition of that pot which I mentioned. And you already know what a pot is, and therefore you find its cognitive absence, and therefore you infer its absence. So that is anupalabdhi. None of these 5 means of knowledge which Smitaji is referring to with regards to verifiable can give us an understanding of the following subjects. Karma. Can you verify karma with these? No, you cannot. Because if cause and effect has an instantaneous what do you call it? If causality is instantaneous, if I throw a ball up and the ball comes back in my hand, then I'm able to build a causal relationship between that, right? Because it is not separated by a longer distance of time. But suppose if I perform an action today and if I get the result after five years or after 20 years or in the next life, there's no way I can verify that that result has come because of a previous action. So therefore, this result is not verifiable by any of these 5 means, right? You cannot even presume it. You cannot even infer it, because inference and presumption will also fail, because somebody will ask you what is the proof that something called karma exists. Another argument is that what is the proof that you need to do dharma also? Why can't you live a life of adharma and lack of morality and so on? So for a lot of these things, the 5 pramanas don't cover it, and that is why you need Shruti as a 6th pramana. In fact, this is one of the most unique things that Pujya Swamiji has taught us, to take Shastra as a pramana. So it is not becoming of a Vedika to wonder if these beliefs are non-verifiable, how do we come to terms with it? Because the fact that it is in the Shastra, and the Shastra is a means of knowledge, therefore you don't need to verify it, because the Shastra is a pramana for you. And therefore what is said in the Shastras I accept as true, because I have Shraddha in the Shruti and in the teachings of the Guru who unfolds the Shastra, right? That is why I said that if we don't have Shraddha is the most essential of the Shat Sampati over here. If Shraddha is not there, then nothing in the Shastra becomes relevant to us, because we will always look for verifiability and falsifiability. So the fact that it is in the Shastras, therefore it need not be verified, because it is a pramana for the aspirant seeker. Does that answer the question? Isn't Swarga Naraka what I experience based on my karmas here in Samsara? Binaji is asking, isn't Swarga Naraka what I experience here based on my experience in Samsara? No. Swarga Naraka, as taught by the Shastra, are physical planes which have a real physical existence, whether in this dimension or a different dimension. But they are actual places where the jiva goes to, and the jiva receives a physical body there. The physical body may not have the same biochemistry, it may not follow the same physical laws as we are aware of over here, but definitely there's a physical body. It's karma janyam, it's punya karma janyam. It is born of a punya karma. And that physical body will allow you to experience different gradations of pleasure and pain, depending on whatever upadhis you take up. So, just to be very clear, Swarga and Naraka are not only in the mind, they are actual places where the jiva can take birth. So, clear on that so far? Could you elaborate on Shraddha pending understanding? Yes. So, Smita ji is asking about Shraddha. If we look at Shraddha, it is faith in the teachings of the Vedas and as unfolded by the Guru. So, thank you for pointing that out. Faith pending understanding. Now, that actually makes more sense. So, faith pending understanding in the teachings of the Vedas and the Guru. You start with faith. You start with having Shraddha in something that is said to you by the Shastras. Like, for example, if you're a very young person and your mother tells you to eat some food that tastes very bad, but you still eat it knowing that what my mother says is good for me, right? So over here, same way the Shastra, you approach it with Shraddha, you approach it with the faith, knowing that what it is saying is correct. And then your next task is to understand what it says. So once the understanding occurs, then the faith no longer is required, right? You only require faith in something that you don't completely understand. But once you understand, then the faith is replaced by understanding, and then the understanding is replaced by conviction. So it has to begin with faith. I'll give you another example. A very good example that I read in Pujya Swamiji's book. So Pujya Swamiji says that there was a guy who was blind, and the doctor operated upon him, and he puts all these bandages around his eyes after the operation, right? Because you want the eyes to heal for a few days. Afterwards, when the days are over, then the doctor asks the patient to open his eyes so that to test whether he can see or not. So the patient says something very stupid. He says that I will open my eyes only if you prove to me that I'll be able to see, because I don't want to cope up with the disappointment of opening my eyes and not being able to see. So the doctor says that that doesn't make sense, right? Because in order to know whether you can see or not, you first need to open your eyes. And the patient says, no, I'm sorry. You have to prove to me that I can see before I open my eyes. And this is exactly the problem with many people approaching Shastra, that they somehow want Shastra to reveal something to them without having Shraddha in it. Over here, the patient has to have Shraddha in the doctor, right? The patient has to take the medicine to undergo the treatment upon the guidance of an expert in that subject who is a doctor. Same way, the Guru is supposed to be the expert over here who is supposed to give us a course of treatment, a sense of understanding of the Shastra, and we are supposed to approach that with Shraddha. And if we approach the teaching with Shraddha, then we will be rewarded by it. Because ultimately, the faith does not last forever. The faith turns into understanding. I don't need to believe in Shastra, I need to understand it. But in order to understand it, first I need to believe that it is correct, and therefore that is the only motivation I have to approach it. So, Shraddha is faith pending understanding. I begin with faith and I end up in understanding. Is that portion clear? Okay, cool. So that is why when Smitaji is saying that these are non-verifiable beliefs, the reconciliation occurs only upon taking Shastra as a Shabda Pramana. 6 Pramanams are there. Shastra is the 6th Pramana, which is a Shabda Pramana. So what my eyes see, my ears cannot verify. What my ears hear, my eyes cannot verify. What my eyes and ears hear and see, my skin cannot verify, right? I cannot touch things and verify what my eyes see. Therefore, same way, nothing can verify what is said in the Shastras. The Shastras are unique. And the Shastra is a Pramanam by itself. The eyes are a Pramanam by itself to see color. Color cannot be seen by any other of the senses. Same way, knowledge of the self, knowledge of Ishvara, knowledge of the Devas and Swarga, Naraka, knowledge of Dharma and so on are unique to the Shastras because they do not occur in any of the other 5 Pramanas. They are not a subject of the other 5 Pramanas. So that is why, that is the overarching understanding of Shraddha. But thanks for pointing out that it's faith pending understanding. You have to understand ultimately. It cannot be faith forever. So Pujya Swamiji says that, Hindus don't believe in Ishvara. We don't. We understand Ishvara. If it's a belief, it will always remain a belief, and a belief cannot transform you. Only understanding can transform you. So, since Vedashri ji is new over here, would you like to discuss any of the previous topics? I understand that a lot of the things we talked about had already been covered in the last 8 talks. So, is there something that you would like me to elaborate upon further, just to bring about consolidation? Okay, until I wait on that response, Smita ji is asking, would this apply here? Fake it to make it? Yes. First, you have to start with believing that something is true in order to come to that understanding, right? So, another example to elaborate this. Let's say you are in a very shady part of the city, and you never come there, and you're lost, and it's a bad hour. It's like close to midnight, and you see all these shady looking characters walking around, and now you have to ask somebody for directions, right? And somebody says that, okay, turn left, go into that dark gully, enter that gully, and then from there you come out on the other side of the road. But then you may not trust that person because he may have some wrong intentions. He may want to rob you, kill you. I don't know. Something could be done there, right? But now suppose you bump into your old friend in that same area, and now he directs you to that gully. Then you'll go there because you know that the friend has your good intentions in mind, or your so same way. If you did not follow his directions, then you'll be lost forever. You'll be lost in that place, and then you'll not be able to get out. But if you take the Shraddha, you take that leap of faith, and you go through there to the gully, and you come out on the other side, and you find the main road, then at least you'll be thankful that yes, this is something that was right, and I'm glad I had Shraddha in this person. The same way, the Vedas continue delivering uh, one goodie after the other to you, right? You see that as you live the life of a Vedika, it definitely has unending benefits for you. You've witnessed it in your own life, and therefore there are some things which are verifiable in the Vedas. There are some things which cannot be verified. But if 99 of the things that the Vedas has suggested to you have enriched and made your life better, then there is no reason that you don't take the other things as true as well. So you approach everything with a sense of Shraddha, and Shraddha will ultimately carry you to understanding. And therefore even Brahma Vidya, right, or Vedas say be compassionate, be kind, be truthful. Even if you may not want to begin that way, as Swamiji says, fake it to make it. So if you don't feel compassionate at right now, then fake compassion for a while. Like try to do a compassionate deed even if you don't feel like doing it, and then you will find that in time you are becoming more and more compassionate. If you want to say hurtful to somebody else, try to say something kind instead, and then you'll see that that becomes a habit. And so same way, any good quality that you imbibed, even from the Sadhana Chatuṣṭaya, begin with faking it, and then ultimately you will make it slowly, slowly, slowly in time with understanding. So you start with Shraddha, you end in understanding. That is what Shraddha is. In spite of the knowledge gained, owning up is the tough nut to crack. That is all Nididhyasana. So we have to ultimately remove our habitual errors. So there are many pratibandhakas, which are obstacles that get in the way of assimilating this knowledge. If I have a 100-meter race, and then instead of going at full speed, I have to jump over these hurdles, then definitely my pace will be slowed down, and then I need to move the hurdles out of the way in order to run the race. Same way, the between ignorance and knowledge, there are many hurdles which are there in our mind. They are in the form of attachments and ragas and dveshas and vasanas and so on. And so our job is to cleanse ourselves of these obstacles, of these pratibandhakas. And in order to do that, we need a prayerful attitude. We need to, approach Ishvara with a prayerful attitude and say that, okay, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. This is my final goal. Please make me get there without any obstacles in the way, right? So you pray to Ganesha Vignahara. So he removes all the obstacles for you, the Vignas. The Vignas are the obstacles. That's why he's called Vigneshwara, the Lord of the obstacles. And this can be seen in two ways, right? One is that we all get obstacles in our life. We pray to Ishvara that the obstacles that are there in our life, may they teach us a valuable lesson. May we learn and grow from these obstacles. And the other meaning of Vignahara, Vignahara is the one who takes away these obstacles, right? So you have Vigneshwara, the Lord of obstacles, as well as the one who takes the obstacles away. So Ishvara gives you obstacles for your growth, and Ishvara will take them away also for your growth. So that is why you always pray to Ishvara. You develop a prayerful attitude by knowing that everything is a given. So Smita ji is asked how to develop a prayerful attitude. A prayerful attitude is nothing but an attitude of gratitude, honestly. Because if you look at the main tenets of Karma Yoga, whatever I receive as Ishvara Prasada Buddhi, right? Whatever result I get in my life, in my day-to-day living, whatever, whether it's a even if it's a negative result or what we perceive as negative, we have to take it gracefully. We have to tell Bhagwan that whatever you've given is for my own growth. If I've received something that is not favorable to me, then I will learn how to come to terms with it, and that itself will help me grow. If tomorrow, my car breaks down, and then I have to struggle a little bit for a couple of days, then that will teach me patience, it will teach me forbearance. So this attitude where whatever I get, I take it with gratitude, even if it's a negative result, that will help me grow. It will help me move beyond my comfort zone. A lot of people have this problem, and that is they have a comfort zone. They cannot move beyond a particular situation. If they step outside of that situation, then suddenly they feel very uncomfortable. So sometimes these obstacles that enter our life are also a way for us to get comfortable with a larger scheme of things, a larger set of things. Today, we may be wealthy, we may have a whole fleet of servants at our disposal to be able to do things for us. Tomorrow, it is possible that you may not have a dime left in your bank accounts. So then the way we deal with life and we continue with that attitude of gratitude is what gives rise to a prayerful attitude. The second thing is that anytime you perform an action, you don't do it for the sake of some personal glory, for the sake of some self-satisfaction or what do you call it, self-gratification. You do it as a arpana, as a dedication to Bhagwan. You do it for the sake of dharma. That Ishvara, whatever I do, I dedicate it at your feet. If I cook food, first I offer it to you. If I teach something to somebody, I offer it first to you. If I learn something from somebody, I offer it to you. Whatever it is, I offer it to you. And whatever I receive, I get it from you. I receive it from you. And therefore, you build a strong relationship with Ishvara, where whatever you offer to Ishvara. Whatever you receive from Ishvara. And therefore, you make Ishvara the mediator, the go-between, the broker, so to speak. Between all your day-to-day transactions, Ishvara is always present. And therefore, that is the best way to develop a prayerful attitude, where you never ever divorce Ishvara from your day-to-day life. Ishvara is not something that you do between 7 to 7:15 p.m. Aarti. Ishvara is something that is there throughout, all the day, throughout your life. And that is the best way to be prayerful. So Beenaji correctly stated it's as a yagna. Whatever you do is a yagna. Whatever you do is an offering. Whatever you do is dedication. Whatever you do is with gratitude. So, Pujya Swamiji has really deeply gone into the topic of building a relationship with Ishvara. Because Ishvara, even in times of trouble, we are able to use that as a shock absorber, right? Because when we talked about Vairagya, if you think about Vairagya again, I talked about leaning on the cardboard chair. If you lean on a cardboard chair, it will crumple. Same way, if you lean on this objective, non-eternal world, the world will also ultimately fall. The ground will move beneath your feet. Relationships you learn to rely upon will also change. Tomorrow you may be attached to a certain friend, a certain family member, they will also go away. Life is very unpredictable. You cannot put all your eggs into one basket. You cannot place your sense of well-being and satisfaction on other people, on other objects. And therefore, the only thing to rely upon is that which does not change. And Ishvara is changeless, avyakta, immovable. So if you learn to rely upon Ishvara, then you will always be rewarded. But if you learn to rely upon like simple people and so on, then you'll always be hurt. And so that is the way to build a relationship with Ishvara. That anything that I undergo in life, let me include Ishvara. Let me make him a part of my problem. Let me make him a part of my solution. Whatever I do, let Ishvara be the guy who gets in the way of things to make them more beautiful for me. So the presence, the incessant, constant presence of Ishvara in your life is the most prayerful way to live. So I guess we've already exceeded by 25 minutes. So let's wrap up with a Mangalacharan again. And in the next session, we'll study the three Sharira. So this will go more into what Vedashri ji was inquiring about, the Atma leaving the body or not being attached to the body, we'll look at the three Shariras and find out what leaves the body and what stays back and what reincarnates and so on. So that will be the topic of our next session. So with that, let's close with the invocation prayer of Tattva Bodha. Om Vasudevendra Yogendram Natva Jnanapradam Gurum Mumukshunam Hitathaya Tattva Bodho Vidiyate Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. See you all next week.